After a very tumultuous 3-9 season, it is natural to have some reluctancy in betting on a strong season. However, new can be good, especially when the strengths outweigh the weaknesses.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use a code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first entire year. Head on over to monarchmoney.com today. We are going to shift into the conversation of the strengths versus the weaknesses. And McLean Baxley did put out a 247 article kind of covering some of this, but I wanted to expand off of that a little bit because I do feel like that there's a good possibility that the strengths will outweigh the weaknesses, and some things that are being perceived as weaknesses might actually be strengths. So this article put out by McLean, pretty daggone good one, so we're going to go over it. The first indication on whether we're going to have a strength or a weakness is going to be the linebacker or middle of the defense. With Nick Martin and Colin Oliver gone to the NFL, obviously there's going to be some holes for new DC, Todd Grantham. We brought in Trip Wright from Ole Miss. You got in Malik Charles that has the NFL pedigree. You got in Brandon Rawls, who hasn't been playing football for a very long time. And then you also brought in Brian McCoy, who had a 5th to 7th round draft grade coming out of Akron this previous season. Not to mention, you do have some returning guys, not very many, due to all of the cuts. But that just means to me that Tamarick Johnson, Puasa Utu, and Gunnar Wilson were able to rise above everybody else, meaning that they're likely going to factor into this equation as the season progresses. If injuries pop up, that could be, obviously very problematic. But nonetheless, we should have an ample amount of skill in the special teams department from a tackling perspective while some of these younger guys are learning from some of these veterans. The next thing he has is a weakness as a quarterback play issue, which is understandable. Haas Haney could be the dude, has the versatility, has the speed, has the athleticism. Zane Flores has that prototypical body that you're looking for. Then you bring in Banks Bowen to help his coach, Clint Bowen, who's a quarterback coach now in Stillwater. But he's not just a guy that's coming to hang out with his dad. He was a legitimate quarterback coming out of high school, had almost 2,100 yards rushing on top of a very good, almost 7,500 yards-ish, if I recall correctly, passing. So it's not chopped liver, but at the same point in time, when you lose Garrett Rangel, you lose Milwaukee Smith, right? Getting quarterback 1 reps in the spring seemed to be somewhat insignificant at the end of the day. Being the best quarterback in the spring game was obviously insignificant. So there is going to be a little bit of trepidation in regards to having quarterbacks who haven't thrown a pass yet at this level. Now, Haas Haney did have several packages at TCU last year, and he did get in, but it was primarily all running packages with not really designs for him to throw the football. So we don't know what we're going to get yet. I definitely think I would agree with this. Strength he has is offensive weapons and depth. With running backs Trent Hallen, Rodney Fields, Freddie Brock, and Sesi Vailahi, all of them seemingly do different things and different sorts of packages that they could provide. Some of them are better in the receiving game. Some of them are going to be better as power-oriented running backs. And then he also talked about the wide receivers. When you bring in guys like Shamar Rigby, Christian Fitzpatrick, DeJuan Lofton, Gavin Freeman, Jalen Lloyd, in the last couple of years, you do feel pretty confident about some of the abilities that we have, not to mention Sam Jackson V. Then he hits on a weakness, the uncertainty at offensive line. We've covered that ad nauseum. That's pretty simplistic when you look at this previous season. The PFF grades were in the low 50s more often than not. That is a recipe for disaster. We've got a couple of injuries seemingly right now, and that's going to hold some guys up. So we don't know exactly what we have in the offensive line yet, even after the spring. So I definitely agree there. Now, he put strength here as special teams. This was a little bit of a surprise to me. Yes, Gabe Panikowski did win the award for the FBS's top kicker in the country this previous season. He went 44 for 47, and you think it looks good, right? But we don't really know what we have. We do see a little bit of Sam Jackson having some versatility in the return game. So I think that's very fair to put him in here. And then you have Westfall coming back as a punt guy. We do lose Hudson Clark, which was the athlete that was able to kind of pin things in certain locations. Wes was the big leg. Hudson was the pinpoint kind of guy. So we'll see if Wes has an emergence here, and we'll see if Panikowski ends up panning off at this level. Then he goes to another weakness, and he said a difficult schedule. And I must admit, this one I absolutely don't agree with, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The only difficult road games are going to be Oregon, Texas Tech, and KU. Texas Tech and KU at the latter half of the season. And as we have seen, if Jalen Daniels or Baron Merton get hurt, Texas Tech and Kansas are not the same ball clubs as when those guys are healthy. Not to mention the fact that Oregon, yes, spring games don't always matter because Milo Smith looked really good in the spring game. Dante Moore, the quarterback at Oregon, looked pretty dreadful in his spring game. So just based off of that one performance, which you can't really isolate it, but if you were to, based off of that one performance, he would not be a quarterback at Oklahoma State. So there's that when it comes to Oregon. We have to go to UCF at the end of the season. We have some payback. I don't think that Coach Frost is going to have this team clicking in one season, especially when you deal with injuries at the latter half of the year. Then you have the heavy hitters at home. You have Kansas State at home. You have Iowa State at home. You have Baylor at home. You have 7 home games in general. So I feel like the schedule is actually one of the easiest in the conference, which is one of the reasons why I'm still claiming that we need to be hammering the over, regardless of what the differentiation between the strengths and weaknesses look like. Now, to expound a little bit off of that, I think another strength is going to be the coaching additions. The fact that we have multiple linebacker coach, multiple safety coaches, multiple offensive line coaches, we're going to be able to teach things from a technical standpoint that we just have not been doing the last couple of years. And I think that is going to show dividends throughout the course of the season. The NFL model, the way that we've been conducting the rookie mini camps, the OTAs, and the roster cuts, very indicative of what an NFL process would look like, I think is going to build a lot of competition, right? And competition typically can breed excellence. So I think this NFL model is going to be a strength as the season progresses. The wide receivers and the special team or the special abilities that some of those guys have, yes, it was covered by McLean, but expanding a little bit more off of that, I think that the size and speed is going to be an issue. You have Cam Abshire at 6'4", 215 pounds. You have Io Shotomite King at 6'5", 225 pounds. You have Christian Fitzpatrick, 6'4", 205, 210 pounds. Then you have to take into consideration Shamar Rigby's almost 6'2", almost 200 pounds as well. So we do have some 50-50 ball individuals that we're going to have to rely on that are going to need to bail the quarterbacks out occasionally. And I think that we have the size and speed to do that when you factor in the track guys like Lloyd. And of course, Gavin Freeman is very shifty, can also be versatile in the return game. Sam Jackson has already shown what his abilities could be in the return game. If he's impressive as a wide receiver, that could be huge. Plus, from the tight end perspective, right? This is another group of guys that are all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260-ish pounds that should be able to be a reliable outlet for whomever we have in the game at quarterback. Another benefit, aka strength to me, is going to be the unknown. Last year, we had 20 returning starters, almost 90% of the roster. The problem is the book was out on how to stop Ollie Gordon. And unfortunately, the same way to stop Ollie helped stop Alan Bowman. And that proved to be a difficulty for us this previous season. This year, nobody knows what we're going to look like. We don't really know what we're going to look like, and I think that could be a positive. Oregon's not going to have film to prepare for Oklahoma State. They're just, unless they're going to go look in offenses from years back. But from a game planning standpoint, they're not going to know who to isolate and who to pay more attention to, who to give double coverage. They're not going to know. So it's going to be a feeling out process, and if their quarterback does have some struggles, we're going to have an opportunity here just from an athletic standpoint to kind of make a statement. I think that is a good thing that people can't game plan against us yet. No Casey Dunn. The offensive ineptitude, the elementary playbook, it is gone. And I think that's obviously going to be a strength throughout the course of the season. The aggressiveness that this whole thing has been conducted, not just the NFL model, but the aggressiveness out of the players. I mean, they're being asked to run at 133,000 miles an hour and play with reckless abandon. We want a bunch of Trey Ruckers. And that is seemingly what we're getting out of this spring cycle thus far. We'll see what fall does, but I feel like that's a definite benefit. The way that we're conducting NIL right now, are we ever going to have the Texas A&M and Texas money? No, we're not. But we're proving this is twice now that we've spent more in NIL than a lot of us thought was going to be physically possible. And we've done very successfully in applying the NIL principles to the transfer portal. I think that's a massive benefit. So now you go to the other weaknesses. The continuity is going to be a little bit of an issue because Cowboy culture has been something that's built up for 2 decades, and it's had to take a little bit of a shift, especially after this previous season. So, yeah, we're getting a lot of guys from former big-time SEC, Big Ten schools, former consensus 4-star, 5-star. We're getting those dudes, but we don't know exactly how they're going to come together. We don't know if they're going to gel as a team, and that's obviously a little up in the air. The defensive line. We don't know what we have. We knew what we had in some guys, but some of those guys have left, including Justin Kirkland. We know that we've brought in some dudes like Michael Diata from Virginia, but we also brought in Morris from Temple, and he didn't stick around all that long. So we're not 100% sure what we have on the defensive line yet, so I don't think that we can consider that a strength until we see it on the field. Third down nemesis. Florida fans, SEC country, they'll tell you all day, every day. First and second down, Todd Grantham's Florida defenses were some of the best in the country. Third down, they were a shell of themselves. Third and Grantham was a saying, so it'll be interesting to see how he's going to combat that now that he's in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Another weakness, in my opinion, is all the changes post-spring. We're still adding linemen because we don't exactly know what we're going to be doing there. We got rid of 2 quarterbacks predicated upon basically athleticism being the X factor for this group, which means that we don't really know what the offense is going to look like. We're still shifting. We're still adding individuals, clearly indicating that we're not 100% sure that the method that we have at the moment is going to be the right one moving forward. It almost feels like that we wasted a lot of snaps on guys like Garrett Rangel and Justin Kirkland in the spring, because when they're getting starter reps and then they're gone, that means that there was a developmental guy behind them that didn't get as many reps that now is going to be forced into a different style of action. I think that's going to be a potential weakness. The complexity of the offensive system and the defensive system, more so the defensive system, I think is going to be something that's difficult, and we're going to have very head-scratching moments. But as time goes on, the more that they pick up, the more seamless the transitions will be for most of this roster, in my opinion. But the complexity, it'll be a strength at some point in time, but in the beginning, it's going to be a weakness, especially after having so many spring exits from a snaps perspective. We're going to have to kind of re-divvy that up. Another weakness has nothing to do with football, really, is the Board of Regents. I mean, they don't seem to be acting on the best behalf of Oklahoma State at the moment. And if Mike Gundy has a bad year, they're going to pop back up, and their political banter is going to cause more problems. So hopefully Mike Gundy just has a pretty phenomenal season, and we don't have to worry about their ridiculousness. And then lastly, before we shift gears to quarterbacks here, the last weakness is going to be exposure and marketing. Last year, Ollie Gordon was the best back in the country coming into the season, so that from a national audience perspective gave us some credence. Mike Gundy appearing on Pat McAfee's show, obviously that was very beneficial. His driving 1,000 times drinking comments probably wasn't great, but at the same point in time, it did kind of help us stay in the public eye. Now, if he would have said that and then we win a Big 12 championship, it probably would have not only mattered, or it wouldn't have mattered, it may have even raised the expectations or the bar when it comes to marketing. But we're not the biggest brand in the country. We're not even the biggest brand in the Big 12. And I feel like that is a process that we have purposely put in our own way to kind of keep all the information in this little bitty baby box. So I do feel like that we need to find more ways, like the Pat McAfee showing by Mike Gundy, to get a bigger, more national audience, respecting what Oklahoma State does. So that's the strength and weaknesses from my perspective. Appreciate McLean putting that out. Pretty awesome article. and it gave us something to kind of banter with back and forth here. Speaking of banter, we always talk about the financial situations. More often than not, you need to have the best in the business to help you with them. The best in the business is Monarch Money. We've all checked our bank accounts and wondered where the money went between dining out, shopping online, entertainment, etc. It's very easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in to be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you can just stop managing money and start building wealth instead. You don't have to juggle multiple apps anymore. When you have a Monarch, you can check all of your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first entire year. That is monarchmoney.com. Use that code, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for half off the entire first year with Monarch Money. Now we get to shift gears and talk about the quarterback position, naturally, the position that everybody talks about all across the country. And for Oklahoma State specifically, I think it is very important for us to continue the recent trend of getting, consensus, big time, 4-star level individuals. We brought in Zane Flores, who was Mr. Nebraska, Gatorade Player of the Year. That was obviously very sought after. Garrett Rangel was a 247 and ESPN 4-star who competed in Elite 11 before coming to Oklahoma State. And then even whenever you look at Milwaukee Smith, he was very sought after, broke a bunch of Tom Brady's records at Juniper Sierra High School. And then Haas Haney, he's a transfer, so it is a little bit different. But nonetheless, he was one of the most highly coveted quarterbacks coming out of high school that could have gone literally anywhere in the country with like a 92 overall grade. That consistency was developed, in my personal opinion, by Tim Rattay. Unfortunately, Tim Rattay didn't have a ton of say outside of the recruiting. So now we're going to have to continue this wave. In order for you to expand your marketability, your visibility, you are going to have to get some of the heavy hitters that can carry that load. And Oklahoma State needs to make a statement. We need to send a message. If you continuously can get high 3, consensus 4-star dudes to come to Oklahoma State, this would be a trend, right? It would be a consistent theme that if you're going to play quarterback in Stillwater, you have to be pretty highly rated and you have to have a lot of ability before you even enter the program. So, of course, we've all been talking about Oscar Rios. Oscar Rios is one of the individuals that garners the most attention, as he should. 6'3", 180 pounds. He's thrown for almost 6,000 yards, 53 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Extremely impressive. Has offers from everywhere in the country, which is why he's a 4-star. This would be a massive get. Now, I do understand that Arizona, Utah is heavily in the mix. And recently we've been seeing that UCLA has jumped in this fold and is being taken more seriously by Oscar Rios. But we have talked a little bit about Luke Fahey. Luke Fahey's, thrown for almost 4,000 yards, started multiple seasons, 43 touchdowns, so only like 6 picks. And he's got offers all over the country. He's been to Indiana, Florida State, Bama, Tennessee, you name it. He can basically pick. However, there was a little write-up whenever he came on his visit to Oklahoma State. It was impressive to him, and he thought that Oklahoma State had everything that you need to be a successful quarterback. So that doesn't mean we're completely out of the race there. And now we also have an offer out to Case Evans. Case Evans is a very underrated quarterback who's thrown for almost 8,700 yards, 86 TDs. Now, he does have like 33 picks, but 86 TDs is nuts. 8,700 yards is absolute insanity. And he's been competing at the Elite 11 stuff. He was at Elite 11 Houston. He got clocked at 21.75 miles an hour, squatting 475. He has a 33.5-inch vertical. The 4.7 40 is not ideal, but that physicality is there The ability is there. The understanding of what the defenses are trying to do is obviously there. 86 touchdowns, like that's difficult to do on air, at practice, in scrimmages. So for him to be able to put up those kind of stats is very impressive. He does have a lot of smaller offers, right? Your Old Dominions, your North Texases of the world. Now he has an Oklahoma State offer, but it was mentioned in an article. Now that he has this Oklahoma State offer, it's only a matter of time for a bunch of other heavy hitters jump into the fold, because when you put up those kind of stats, and this is in Texas, right? So at a powerhouse high school that competes for state championships on a yearly basis, the expectations there are for him to put up this kind of yards, but he hasn't been getting all of the love that some of the other quarterbacks are getting, which is potentially why he's a very intriguing prospect. Regardless of how it shakes out, we need to send a message. We need to prove a point here that we can continuously get top end quarterbacks to Stillwater without Timmer's Hay. Bo Bentley out of Salina, Texas is also very interesting, but I haven't heard a lot about him being seriously in the mix to be a Cowboy. But these other quarterbacks are very, very well in this. Oscar Rios could be a Cowboy. Luke Fahey could be a Cowboy. Case Evans could be a Cowboy. And I think Case is only a 3-star at the moment, but as the season goes on, he's going to be upgraded to a 4-star, more likely because of the talent, because of their ability to play for yet another state championship, because that's the expectation, and they seemingly have the quarterback to get them there. Speaking of having the right quarterback, we used to have a quarterback named Nolan McClain that would jump on the mound and also drop bombs. One of those dudes would have been nice, but it was a rock chalk walk-off. Does that mean we're out of it tournament-wise? No, but we're probably a 3 seed. After winning 11 of our last 12, Cowboy baseball finally fell to KU in the Big 12 tournament. Was it expected to some degree? Yes. KU is a very legitimate ball club. They're senior laden. They have 6 starting seniors. They don't make a ton of mistakes. They know how to put the pressure on you and allow you to make mistakes. And that's essentially what happened. We had some offensive firepower early. We got up 6-2. Harrison Bodendorf was pitching pretty daggone well. He was cruising for most part. Then he ran into a little bit of a rough patch, and we let him walk a few people. And then we made a change, but we happened to make a change when they had their best hitter up. And what does he do? He drops a bomb, and they tie the game up. So it goes from 6-2 to 6-6. Then it's a back and forth battle. We had a couple hits. They have a couple hits. They have a couple Ks. We have a couple Ks. And then things just didn't break our way. Had a couple walks again. And we got ourselves in a bad spot. They hit a walk-off in extra innings. So we made a decent account for ourselves with the sweep of Arizona State, with the win at Baylor, with getting hot at the end of the year. We seemingly punched a ticket to play in a regional. Winning against KU obviously improves that. But nonetheless, there's a couple big publications that have put out that Oklahoma State should be a part of this ordeal. And both of them have us as a 3 seed, which is probably not too far off. D1 Baseball has us as the 3 seed in the Atlanta Regional, hosted by Georgia Tech, who's the overall 16 seed. So they get the last host site, with Florida as the 2 seed and Murray State as the 4 seed. Redemption against Florida would be kind of poetic justice here. And then Baseball America also has Oklahoma State as a 3 seed. But this time they have us going to Tallahassee for the overall 10 seed in Florida State, with Alabama being the 2 seed and Bethune-Cookman being the 4 seed. So it does appear as though we're in. Now I almost got to cheer for KU. See, help me out in the comment section. I'm a little torn here. I kind of want to see KU, since they beat us, win the whole thing. Also, I'd like to see a Howland Stadium get absolutely wild and rocking with teams from other places. But at the same time, former Cowboy player and coach Steve Saban's won the regular season Big 12 tournament or regular season championship with West Virginia, yet he did not get the coach of the year, which I'm not saying KU's coach didn't deserve it. I think he did. But our former Cowboy didn't get coach of the year after coaching his team to a regular season championship. So it almost feels like it would be nice for him to win the Big 12 tournament championship, because that would be almost like a consolation prize. So do we cheer for the former Cowboy, or do we cheer for the team that beat us that could potentially host? Now, West Virginia and KU both could host. So it feels like the winner, if one of those two win it, they're probably going to host. And I'm kind of torn, because it's good for us if the team that beat us continues to win. But at the same point in time, we've got a former Cowboy coaching West Virginia, and he didn't exactly get the postseason accolades that he probably earned and deserved as well. You know, they did a bullcrap. I can't stand that. And Oklahoma State's Harrison Bodendorf, instead of getting pitcher of the year, was given co-newcomer of the year. Why not do co-coach of the year? If you're going to do that, I mean, I don't know. Regardless, out of those two regionals, obviously the easier spot on paper would be getting the 16 seed Georgia Tech. But, and that gives us some redemption potential against Florida. However, going to the overall 10 seed and playing Florida State and Alabama, that's pretty cool. And I think it would probably set us up in a better position moving forward if we were able to take out Florida State and Bama. As far as level of competition goes, preparedness for a super regional would be a lot better if you were able to knock those teams down. So I don't know if it's better to go the quote unquote easy route or the more difficult route that probably gets you more prepared. Regardless, we made the postseason, and a month ago we weren't going to make it. I mean, heck, a month and a half ago we weren't even going to make the Big 12 tournament. So it is nice to see us get hot at the end of the year. The pitching, it's not bad. It's good enough to win some games. The inconsistencies in hitting are still going to be the issue. We have untimely errors, which is fairly uncharacteristic of Cowboy baseball. So this is not the same club talent-wise that we're used to seeing. But getting in the tournament after how the first half of the year went is a big deal. And either one of these spots, if it comes to fruition, I'm okay with either of them, because it does just give us the ability to keep playing and making it back to Omaha. And a down year, just like Florida did last year, would be pretty cool. And that would help with marketability. We would be the Cinderella team if we were to make it to Omaha after being basically a 500 ball club most of the season, just like Florida last year. And of course, they came into Stillwater, and yeah, we know how that went. But at least we get to play postseason baseball. We get to see at least another couple games of Rob Walton. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. And, of course, my podcast and people out there. This would be nothing without you, so I appreciate you. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Later, Tater.